The thought occurred to me while I was watching this episode of The Bridge is that, this is a pretty good episode. The script's good, the pacing is decent, or at least it is by this show's standards. Like I said, I've always wished that the pace would be a little bit quicker on this show. I know the slow pace is part of the point, but still, it's sometimes it gets a little tiring. But the thought occurred to me as I was watching this episode that despite how good it is, I think it could have been better, and I really do think that. And I hate to be that guy who says, "Oh, well, this was okay, but it could have been better," because by its very nature, the entertainment industry and many aspects of it are totally lacking perfection. I mean, nothing is perfect, or at least nothing is when it comes to something as subjective as the entertainment industry. But for some reason, more so than any of the other episodes this season, I actually zeroed in on some aspects that I think could have made this episode stronger. Because, the plot of this, it's basically continuing from where we left off. Fausto Galvan still has Sebastian's daughter as a hostage. He's still on the run. The CIA and the DEA are basically at odds. The CIA, everyone's trying to figure out, why is the CIA seemingly trying to help Fausto Galvan? What is Eleanor going to do now that she doesn't have her ledger anymore? I mean, how is the deal with Sebastian still going to hold? Now that Fausto has some leverage against Sebastian. So all of these elements. Oh, and also Sonia and Hank what's the word I'm looking for? Joining forces with Daniel and Adriana, the journalists, in order to get a clearer picture of what's going on. So all of these elements are about to come together. They're fixing to come together to what will hopefully be a pretty chaotic season finale where things just explode in everyone's faces. It'll be interesting to see where everything ends up, especially since that they've shown really no hesitation in axing off several of the characters this season, because earlier in the season they axed off Annabeth Gish, they axed off Joe McKenzie, the character Joe McKenzie. The actor may be Abraham Ben Ruby, but I could be mistaken. But the lead DEA agent, Joe McKenzie, they axed him off. And in this episode, they actually axed off Thomas M. Wright, the character of Lindier, who's the guy who murmurs like this all the time. Which I have to say that was a shame. Although I do like the way that was handled, it is a shame because I was just starting to like this guy. I think I said in a few previous videos that I was finally really getting invested in him and Eva and how they were sort of playing off of each other about how Eva is slowly losing the will to exact revenge, and Lindier, I believe that's his name. I only know Lindier from Lord of the Rings, but Thomas Wright, he's basically saying no, I can't live while guys like that are still in the world. So he goes after Robles and he gets shot and killed, and that's where we leave him. So if most likely we'll see what happens to Eva in the wake of losing her protector. How she will go through the emotional turmoil of losing the guy who she actually was starting to fall in love with. But again, I like the way that was handled, considering that he just could not let go of the whole revenge angle, and she was ready to let go. But yeah, it really did come back to bite him. So I can't really say it was entirely uncalled for, or that it came out of nowhere, because it really didn't. I thought it was set up pretty nicely, while at the same time executed in a way where it felt like a twist. So yeah, I thought it was handled really well. I'm just sad to see him go. But in addition, the points where I felt this episode could have been stronger were the more human moments, or lack thereof. Now, I don't mean to say that the acting was bad. The acting is still fine. Diane Kruger, Ted Levine, Demian Bashir, Matthew Lillard, Emily Rios, all these guys, and Ramon Franco, and Bruno Bashir, they're all still fine. Oh, and Franco Potente. The acting is still solid. I have no problems with the acting. I actually think it's gotten better as the series has gone on. I mean, they've grown more confident in these roles. But again, I just think there were a few moments where we could have gotten some more emotion out of these characters, or we could have really stopped and let them breathe instead of just continually advancing the plot. Now, what I mean by that is when Marco was taken hostage by Fausto Galvan, and basically all his cards are on the table. Marco has betrayed Fausto. He has basically sold him to the Marines. He was planning to try and capture him. So this, and considering these two guys supposedly grew up together, this would have been an ideal time to really see some emotional turmoil between these two. I mean, Fausto Galvan could have had this real moment of, how could you do this to me, blah blah blah. Instead, it just comes down to him being pissed at Marco, which understandably so, but the way that they play it, it just seems like he's executing yet another one of his enemies. It doesn't really feel like it hits him harder than some guy who he just executes right off the street. And I think that was my big problem, is that I think it should have been different for Marco, and it just wasn't. True, he didn't actually kill Marco, he's taking him alive, but again, I think we could have seen some more meaningful interaction between those two. In addition, we could have gotten some more out of Eleanor, despite how beautifully understated the character has been up to this point. But Eleanor, she no longer has any leverage. I mean, she's now unsure about whether or not Sebastian is going to keep his end of the deal. So again, we could have seen her get progressively more desperate now that Sonia Cross has the ledger and she doesn't. But again, we're still advancing the plot. We're still trying to give each of these characters their time to shine. Let's see. Yeah, that really about sums up this episode in a nutshell. Is that everything else was good. The cinematography, the pacing, the acting, the storytelling, the writing. It's just I think if they inserted a little bit more of the human element into it, inserted a little bit more emotion, I think it would have made this episode more powerful. Instead, it just settled at being good. And if that's what you're looking for, then you will like this episode. You'll probably like it regardless. But I don't know. I guess the pre-season finale episode, I think I expected maybe a little bit more on the emotional side. Although maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I don't know. That's my 2 cents on this particular episode of The Bridge. And I don't even know how many people actually care about my opinion at this point, considering I'm a few days late. In retrospect, it probably was a bit of a mistake to do video reviews on The Bridge, because I don't actually, more often than not, I don't actually get a chance to watch them until a day or two after. So by that point, I don't really think anyone is particularly interested in what I have to say about The Bridge. Not really a whole lot of people watch my channel anyway, but by that point, I think it's a bit of a lost cause. But that's enough reflecting. This episode of The Bridge, very good, but could have been better.